All right, now that you know how venture capital funds are structured, it's time to dive into everyone's favorite subject, regulations. Like everything in the financial sector, venture capital has regulations that you're gonna wanna know about. As you move through your journey in VC, you, your fund, and the whole fundraising process are all gonna have to comply with these regulations. So before you raise any money, it's really important to understand this regulatory landscape. It's gonna have an impact on how much you raise, who you raise from, and literally how you actually run the raise. So buckle up, because this next lesson is gonna come in 3 parts. Across the whole thing, we're gonna go deep into the weeds on everything you need to know about venture capital regulations. So right out the gate, there are 3 main areas where regulations are going to focus: the fund advisor, and the fundraising process itself. Under US laws, each one of these categories has one overriding framework. You're gonna have to register with the Securities Exchange Commission, or the SEC, unless you fit into an exemption that allows you to not register with the SEC. Now, registration comes with a whole bunch of painful stuff, and that's why you may want to look for an exemption. So, if you take anything away from these next lessons, remember, registration unless they fit into an exemption. So first up, let's dive into registration. And from there, we'll zoom right in on that first category, the fund. We talked in lesson 1 about how a fund is a legal entity set up to make investments. So it pretty neatly fits into what the SEC calls an investment company. And investment companies need to register with the SEC unless there's some kind of exemption, which for you means a fund typically needs to register with the SEC as an investment company unless there's some kind of exemption. Preview, we're going to talk about these exemptions in the next lesson. But for now, just know this one general thing: the fund needs to register unless there's an exemption. Cool? Okay. Similarly, if we go down the list to fund advisors, unless there's some kind of exemption, fund advisors also have to register either with the SEC or a state regulator if they do the following things: if they give investment advice on securities as a job, if they manage certain types of funds, or if they make certain types of investments. If it sounds like exactly the type of things fund advisors do, then yeah, that's because it is. So fund advisors also need to register, say it with me, unless they fit into an exemption. And finally, we're going to keep going down that list to the fundraising process itself. So when a fund raises money from LPs, in exchange for partial ownership of that fund, well, what they're actually doing is selling equity in that fund. And guess what? This sale of equity also has to be registered with the SEC unless there's an exemption. Now, we keep coming back to this idea of registration unless there's an exemption. So why are we so concerned with this idea of registration? High level, there's a whole bunch of stuff that comes along with SEC registration. You got big requirements for reporting, disclosures, and all types of other compliance-related stuff. And dealing with all these requirements can be super expensive and take a lot of time. But like we've been saying, the law does recognize certain exemptions from having to register. And that's the focus of our next lesson, exemptions. So go stretch your legs, grab a glass of water, and take a deep breath, because this is where we're going to start diving in head first. When you're ready, click on over and let's do it.